It's very easy to take things out of context. In a new interview talking about The Bad Batch Season 3, voice actor D. Bradley Baker had a very interesting choice of words, and I think it's worth talking about, breaking it down, and also staying in context and looking at exactly what he meant. Because The Bad Batch, for many fans, is the end of an era, and to an extent, concludes a big part of what George Lucas set up in the prequel trilogy, the Clone Wars series, and its aftermath. Let's take a look. As you guys know, there is a pretty prevalent conversation and debate that goes on in the Star Wars fandom pretty much every day. The extent to which Disney follows in George Lucas's vision, in his footsteps, are they staying in line with the legacy, or have they entirely strayed from it? You can ask this question to 100 different fans and get 100 different responses. I've seen every opinion ranging from everything Disney does is great, to others who say everything Disney puts out is awful. Some say they like one or two shows, but that The Last Jedi destroyed it. Or maybe it was The Kenobi Show, or Book of Boba Fett. Everyone's opinion varies, and you're not going to find two Star Wars fans who share the identical same perspective. But regardless, Star Wars was going to change under Disney, one way or another, for better or for worse. They've had many initiatives, the main one being the High Republic, with the Acolyte, the books, the comics, Young Jedi Adventures, young adult novels, a multimedia initiative. But regardless, there is no doubt, Disney is trying new things, trying to steer Star Wars in various directions, to go their own way with their canon. And fundamentally, at least to some degree, our perception of some beloved characters have changed. Disney's done things with them that we don't know if George Lucas would agree with. We're never going to know with certainty what the alternate universe would have looked like, where George never sold the franchise to Disney, and what Star Wars would have looked like under George in 2024. Some fans think they have an idea, but we don't know. We know from time to time he does speak with Dave Filoni, and he's been on the set of The Mandalorian. He also called Tony Gilroy to congratulate him on Rogue One, and maybe Andor as well. But in terms of his own vision, if he was still at Lucasfilm and never sold it, we don't know. Nobody has a clue. When it was his vision, he was a technological revolutionary. He wanted to take risks, try new ideas, new concepts, and he often changed what Star Wars could be. I think he would have gone even further than Disney. I think they're the ones who are trying to kind of steer it in line with a saga. George wanted to explore midichlorians, the microscopic aspects of the galaxy. The prequel trilogy was controversial enough, so who knows what he would have done 25 years after The Phantom Menace. I don't think it's this ideal that a lot of fans have in their minds, where it was some kind of expanded universe dream where he rehashes Luke post episode 6 over and over again. I don't think that's what he would have gone for. But having said all of this, it seems as though the end of George Lucas's legacy is nigh. Because the voice of the clones, amidst the final season of the show, in just under a week's time, serves as the final piece and culmination of George's work. Because as we know, he was a big part of helping Dave Filoni create the Clone Wars, and the concept of an enhanced batch of clones, Clone Force 99, originates with the creator himself. Here's what D. Bradley Baker said. It actually tracks back to the original idea George Lucas came up with. Because this sort of end is what George Lucas's legacy is, The Bad Batch Season 3. He came up with the idea, and it was part of the original Clone Wars series that he made with Dave. The dynamic that he and the writers came up with was very clear, so that they feel so different, because they all feel like such different people to me. And again, just as we've covered with other interviews, it sounds like there is going to be something very conclusive about this show, but it is going to lead to something more, but in my estimation, with less clones. The end of an era. But we do have something of a tease for the next series coming after The Bad Batch Season 3, one that heavily involves Asajj Ventress but also other bounty hunters too, which goes back to a rumour we heard a couple of weeks ago from Star Wars Sessions, when they said that they heard after Tales of the Jedi Season 2 and The Bad Batch Season 3, we're going to get Tales of the Bounty Hunters and other spin-offs as well. This comes from The Direct, who sat down with the producers on the show. They spoke with Jennifer Corbett and supervising director Brad Rau, who revealed that after her appearance in The Bad Batch Season 3, as teased by the voice actress a couple of days ago, we're gonna get more Asajj Ventress in future stories. On the subject of why now was the best time to bring Asajj back, Brad Rau said this: "We're huge Ventress fans." And he reiterated, as we saw on Star Wars' website, they're not going to contradict anything that happens in the book Dark Disciple. Having said this, he kind of warns us, if you're looking for answers as to how she returned, that's not going to be in Season 3, but instead, in future stories down the line. He said, quote, "There will be future answers, down the road in something else, not necessarily in this show." And this also has me thinking, we're not getting too much Asajj in the Bad Batch. It could just be a brief appearance. But the voice actress of Omega, Michelle Ang, hinted at some kind of connection between Omega and Asajj. The two characters will interact in some kind of meaningful capacity, which is yet to be seen and understood. So moving on, but staying on the subject of the Bad Batch, the creatives continued talking about various characters, and it came to the subject of Delta Squad. And another fun returning character that the Bad Batch has already introduced is Scorch, an elite soldier from Delta Squad, a group who led their own fan-favourite video game in 2005, Republic Commando. But Scorch doesn't do much in the series, or should I say, he hasn't done so far, but he is Dr. Hemlock's personal bodyguard and leading officer going into Season 3, but none of his former squad mates have appeared yet in the show, or at least not confirmed. As for whether or not this is going to happen, Jennifer Corbett wouldn't say for sure, but she confirmed you will be seeing a lot more of Scorch, and his role in the final season is elevated. She went on to say, quote, "There are so many stories to tell in Star Wars, so I say nothing is out of the realm of possibility for future content." Brad Rau chimed in and confirms that engineer and designer David Collins, who works on the show, was also someone who was a creative on the original Republic Commando video game. So he might have influenced the story if Scorch and his friends are going to reappear, and some of that might become canon. And so finally, my dear friends, because it's the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, the full issue of Empire magazine has released. The issue where they interview various prequel actors. We've covered the comments of Hayden Christensen, Samuel L. Jackson, a little bit of Ian McDiarmid, and now I want to talk about a character who is often forgotten. Brian Blessed's Boss Nass, the Gungan leader, or Gungan, as George Lucas would say. A hilarious CG character who appears in episode 1 and then again at Padme's funeral in Revenge of the Sith. But his canon death, what happens to him afterwards, is not documented. But Empire magazine say Brian Blessed was over the moon to be asked about this character after all these years, and he recalls the first time he did the face wobble for George. George wanted the character to have something very unique. He said, "Brian, can you do something totally original, a special effect of some kind, something unique to Boss Nass?" And Brian remembers saying, "Misa like this." And he says, quote, "I did this huge, wonderful wobble with my face." George said, "You mad bastard, Brian. That's exactly what I wanted." During the filming of the scene, Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson reportedly struggled to keep a straight face. They found it hilarious. Blessed drew much of his inspiration for the character from nature. He says he took inspiration from many creatures he studied over the years. And he summarizes, "You can't just turn up there and do a voice. That's bollocks." What a legend. Really hilarious. But share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. And did you enjoy this video? If you did, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.